Once upon a time, there was a man who loved a woman who was a bird. He had come across a white crane with an arrow in her wing and cared for her until she was strong enough to fly away. One day soon after, a woman as graceful as a white crane arrived on his doorstep. They married, but were poor, their fortunes fading hourly. She promised him all the wealth he desired, anything for his happiness, as long as he swore never to enter the room where she set up her loom. The man, overjoyed by the riches he had gained from her weaving, forced her to work more and more until at last he was so consumed with desire to discover her secret. He entered her closed room and found a white crane working on a cold loom, each thread a feather that fell from her skin, until threadbare she grew thin. Her secret betrayed, the crane wife cried out in anguish and flew away, never to return. It was only then that the truth raked at the man's heart. She had dyed the silk woven from her feathers with her own heart's blood. It shone with all the beauty of her pain and love. Guys, one of the things that disappoints me about the later seasons of RWBY is that they apparently had a fairy tale motif, but didn't keep it up. I mean, my god. Look at what Princess Tutu does. See all these fairy tale motifs in this fic? Do you see all these stories that the fic has been presenting? There's your story. Do it. Mythos disappeared like mist before sunlight. Rue woke alone in her room in the girls' dorm, wondering if she had merely dreamed him and her entire life into existence. Shaking away such morbid, useless thoughts, she dressed and somehow found her way into Duck's smile attic room. Startled at the clatter punctuated by exasperated Ravenclaws emanating from within, Rue knocked on the door sharply, only for the sounds of chaos to increase. "Duck, what are you doing in there? Open the door!" A jumble, a tumble, and then at last, Duck with hair array, covered in seed husk, and bird feathers, smiled into Rue's worried face, while the older girl could merely blink in her surprise. Somehow, before Duck had any sense of what was happening, Rue had her cleaned up, dressed, brushed, and prepared. "But Rue," Duck complained, "it's still so early. I was going to lie in some more before getting ready for class. Pete and Lily won't even stop by for another hour." "That's exactly why you're in the beginner class," Rue had responded ruthlessly. "Besides, if you're going to look for Fakir, aren't the practice rooms the first place you should check?" But Duck would not meet her eyes as the two girls walked to the ballet building. "He won't be there," she whispered at last. "He's been avoiding me." Duck. But Duck merely shook her head, laughed a false note, and smiled. "Forget I said that, Rue. I'll make sure to figure out what's going on with him, even if—" But she let the rest unspoken. "Even if he doesn't like me anymore." As Duck had predicted, Fakir was not in the practice room. Rather than allowing Duck to descend into gloomy thoughts, Rue had relentlessly bullied her into practicing. There was nothing like ballet to ease away the worries. Rue thought as she corrected Duck's form again, as she set Duck working on the basics under her watchful eye. Or at least, that's what she was thinking, until she began her routine. Even as she heard Duck calling out the steps to herself under her breath, the muscles in Rue's calves quivered. Her foot twisted as she stumbled. Her head bowed. She heard in her memory, as if from another lifetime. "If you take a 1-day break for your ballet, you will know it. If you take a 2-day break, those around you will know it. And if you take a 1-day break, your audience will know it." How many timeless days had passed since he had devoted herself seriously to dance? How could she have let the girl Rue fade away so completely? She would reinscribe the movements into her body's memory once more, even if it left her feet bloody, she thought grimly, and began again. Fakir did not come to classes that day. He was nowhere to be found. Duck knew this because she searched the town for him. Rue did not leave the practice room until it was so late that even the moon had set, and she did not have enough light to dance by. She stumbled to her room to find Mythos waiting for her, another ravenous fledgling in his hands. She wanted to laugh at the strange routine they had fallen into as they made their way to Duck's room again. Duck made room for the second fledgling in a small laying basket. As he prepared on her desk, fished out insects from a jar crawling with them. So he cared for the injured birds long enough to have the foresight to collect their supper, while as he wandered through the forest searching for Fakir all evening for this purpose. Rue watched with a grimace of disgust as the two raucous creatures fought each other over their meal. But Mythos did not notice. Instead, gazed into the black nothingness of window with a frown of determination. I must find the source of these ravens. This time I will put a stop to it before the town descends into chaos again. I will fight the raven to the end, he vowed, telling himself to not think of why he couldn't bring himself to kill these fledglings of his adversary, and not let his heart waver. Rue wondered what he had been doing all day, dancing away as if nothing were the matter. Rue had coerced Duck into another bout of early morning practice, but did not keep her there after classes. Rue had decided not to try out for the upcoming production of Sleeping Beauty that the ballet students would perform at the annual school festival. She did not think she could do Princess Aurora any justice as she was now. That all the other students, instructors, both assumed she was being magnanimous and giving a chance to others who would not have it otherwise, since her own skill was that much superior, made her burden shame even more. She found an empty practice room for herself as the advanced class was all left to its own devices, and went through the basics mercilessly. She knew the practice was worthless because her mind was elsewhere, so how could her body possibly follow? Yet she did not stop. At last, one shadow detaching itself from the doorway brought her to a halt. "Phew!" she exclaimed in surprise. Duck had been surprised when the ballet instructor had approached her during the morning lessons, suitably impressed by her recent early morning efforts brought on by Rue, to tell her she would be allowed part of the production after all. She was to be a handmaiden of the Princess Aurora. She would be as much of a prop as the painted trees behind her, there to be add a touch of color. Well, it's much more than Duck had ever hoped for, and just to be a part of something so beautiful was enough for her. First thought was to wonder how Fakir would tease her when she told him. She felt a pang in her heart. Well, that was how she found herself in the girls' dressing room, trying on costume alterations could be made in time. She pushed all the gloomy thoughts out of her head forcefully as she tried to tie her hair into a chignon, only to have it fall awry. "Oh, silly Duck," Gilly giggled. "You'll have to take out your braid first." "Where's Pink?" Duck asked, twisting her neck around to try and find the other girl, only to have Lily yank her head back in place. "Sit still, Duck, or we'll never get your wild mane under control. Then he might decide you're too wild to be a handmaiden, and then—" Lily continued as she helped Duck unwind and brushed out the long braid from the twisted knot Duck had wrangled into her earlier attempts. Duck had long since learned the art of strategic listening from having been friends with Lily for so long. Her mind did not tune to the blonde's words until she heard Pink's name once again. "We just happened to come across him in town earlier today. Then we happened to follow him for a bit. Then Pink just happened to decide to keep following him." Somehow she already knew the answer, but she couldn't stop herself from asking. "Who?" "Why, Fakir, of course. Minnie shall confess her love." Lily squealed as she pushed the brush deftly through Duck's knee-length hair. "Oh, Duck, are you burning up with jealousy?" Where did you see him last?" Duck interrupted anxiously. "He was stalking out towards the lake. Oh, battle between love and friendship. How exciting! How do you feel, Duck? Are you crushed, Duck? Betrayed? Heartbroken?" But Duck didn't have time to answer as she ran out of the dressing room, a feeling of foreboding settling in her stomach. She did not stop for shoes or even ballet slippers, still in a pale yellow ballet costume, like the palest light of sunrise, with the dawn-colored rosebuds moisturing her waist and askew in her hair, all pale orgies of pinks. Her hair, meant to be coiled tightly around her head in chignon, so as not to get in the way of during the performance, swaying now wildly in long orange-red waves as he ran out of the changing room to the first rush of panic. That same unease in her heart told her just who Pink had followed, also told her to find Fakir before Mythos did. "I never learned your name," Rue told him. "Auteur," he responded. "A writer in name only." The glasses hid his eyes. "I never meant to drag you into this." Rue frowned in the strange riddle of a boy in front of her. "What do you mean?" I didn't think my hand in the story would pull you into it too. I really did love you. At that, Rue relented, remembering what his love meant for her when she had thought only monsters could love her. I know, she said in a soft voice, but now the story will not have mercy for any of us, since they will not have any mercy on it. But Rue was not a princess in name only. Explain yourself at once. He wanted to write a story. Fakir? For Mythos? I know that already. Stop speaking in riddles. No, for Princess Tutu, by removing his own heart and giving it to her. But he knew that leaving in such a manuscript unattended was dangerous, so he entrusted it to me. Rue had been bathed in Raven's blood since before she had learned human words, so she could hear what Atur did not say. She could hear the darkness of his heart because there were some in her own. But he had encountered any her own ambitions and desires. She finished for him, and you meddled. He flinched and put the glasses up on his nose with a shaking hand. What happened to the story? They took it. Those who were sworn to prevent dangerous stories from being born. The executioners. The bookmen. Then what are you doing here? She demanded. What are you waiting around here for? Ruth stood out of the practice room. What? Where are you going? Atura asked, taken aback. To find them. You said the story would not have any mercy on us if the bookmen destroyed it. Are you insane? They almost killed me when they found me. They'll come. But she was done with regret. She was done with doubt. Princess Tutu, Rue remembered, danced effortlessly. But she, Rue, danced on blood and sinew. She had tried to hide away that desperate human part of her, so that she would never lose Mythos' love. But she lost herself. Could she even feel the warmth of his love? She'd find that little girl had been, the one who danced pointed until her blistered feet bled. This time, she would not just be the princess who needed saving. Of course, that meant Atur could do nothing but follow. It was a romantic era tutu rather than a classical one, which had been a surprising costuming choice for Sleeping Beauty. She and Pick and Little had wondered at it, and in the memory of that laughter-filled conversation felt like a lifetime away. The same gauzy skirt now flirting around Duck's knees as he stood frozen in shock. She watched the darkest night plunge his sword into Peek's heart as the pink-haired girl looked on, first in horror then in dazed memory. Somehow the reeds continued to rustle in the wind as if nothing was amiss. The lake water sparkled tranquilly, and the sun looked on serenely. Duck felt her knees give way under her. He was a crumpling yellow skirt under tangling, tumbling hair. Peek! She whispered, and last made her way over to her fallen friend and helped her lean against a tree. But Duck saw no raven nestling near her, only a stunned pain, until she lifted Peek's eyes and found a ravenous sorrow calling back at her before Peek closed their eyes, unconscious. She could not bring herself to look up at Fakir for a long moment, because she knew she had done this to him, taking his heart and thirstily keeping it. She saw the horror and anguish in his face, and said in a low, pained voice, "The Princess of Morning." And then, with a grief he did not know he was capable of feeling, "Have I created you too? That sorrow in your eyes." But even in the depths of despair, even with his heart incomplete, there are some things Fakir knew to the marrow of his bones. No, not morning. The Princess of Morning. The dawn that persists in the face of darkest night. Ooh, clever wordplay. Fakir, why are you doing this? What choice do I have? He spat out bitterly. There is a despair in their hearts that calls to my own. I cannot rest until I free it. Doug touched the hand unconsciously to the broken pendant at her neck, and reached out to Fakir, where his heart should be. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice like her heart breaking. Are we at this impasse again? You will not take all my heart, and I will not take back the rest. A cruel, bitter smile crossed his lips, but the physicist was only directed against himself. What a worthless, unwanted thing. Fakir would take it to you like this! Duck yelled at him, because she didn't know how else to make that cunning cruelty stop. It's lonely without you. Duck yelled at him, because she didn't know how else to make that cunning cruelty stop. It's lonely without you. Even though this, he mocked, gesturing in the direction of the fallen peak. Is part of who I am.
This is a part of you, not all of you. Found the worst parts of me and didn't turn away. Not just that Princess Tutu was duck, or that duck was duck. You found out all I truly am, didn't look away. Even when you learned how selfish I am, when I couldn't return Mrs. heart to him. So yes, even though this is a part of you, who you are, there's no meaning to my being human without you.
Then there's no meaning to my having a heart without a girl named Duck.
To take mine instead.
Duck wanted to say, but Duck would never know how Fakir would have responded to her offer, born at once from impulse and from her deepest desires, because in that moment Mythos appeared and she did not speak. Mythos took in the sable-clad Fakir, the fallen girl with the shadow of a fledgling raven hovering near her, and said neutrally, I sensed the raven, so I came. You, this is your fault, Fakir hissed, a cold anger burning at the sight of a prince who had loved so much that had cost him all his sorrow. If only you had chosen her for your princess, I would never become the monster I am now, with a heart as black as raven feathers. Only one way for Mythos to understand those words, even though he felt as if his heart was about to fracture all over again, shatter of its own accord. Only one way for him to respond to them. He was sworn to battle the monster Raven. He had to raise his sword against his truest knight. Was it the Raven's blood within him that made him hesitate? Had the taint of the Raven within him spread? This was his duty, his fate, no one else's. He could not waver. Transforming into the prince he was, Mythos drew his sword. Step back, Tutu.
We should have cut off his hands before it came to this.
An old voice rasped.
Whose? The spinners or the boy who's guided to them? Both.
A third, more querulous tone added.
Dangerous stories must not be born,
He recited.
We were fools to trust in him last time. And all because a legend we never dreamed came true to life to save him. Princess Tutu.
Yet another voice whispered.
Half wishful, half disbelieving into silence. Destroying endings don't serve us, but now we can end this once and for all. Now we have that manuscript. We can't be too hasty. We must only act when we have no other choice. And that's exactly what led us here. We hesitated in our duty. We should have cut off that young spinner's hands when he knelt before Drosselmeyer's grave, tossed him in with the old man's. We should have silenced the boy as soon as his glasses started reflecting stories. Then let us resolve our manipulations of the spinners forever.
Old, wrinkled hands, bent like claws, took up the manuscript. It was a blend of pages, old and new, almost all pocked with burn marks, and covered with two hands, although the burn marks were like a third, invisible hand among them. An elegant, flowing penmanship crabbed the meticulous one, thrust it into the fire. The last page burned first, its edges curling up as tongues of flames licked at the words, devouring the stories line by line until nothing remained but ashes. A dark mist escaped the burning pages, more accurate than any smoke seemed to consume the world. And at that moment, beside the link with his blade drawn, the knight rushed at the prince. Their swords clashed, and the two drove at each other mercilessly. Neither was holding back, as Fakir had Mythos went as the Raven Prince had attacked him. Duck clutched the broken pendant in her hand, and wished with all her might to turn to Princess Tutu. She had been able to transform before for Mythos' sake. Why couldn't she transform now when she needed to do so desperately, to save both him and Fakir? And no matter how hard she wished, she did not feel the change overtaking her body, and only then realized that when she quieted her spies, even when she spoke with a duck-like voice, Fakir's heart never returned to her just a duck. And now, no matter how hard she gripped the pendant in her desperate fingers, her palm bleeding on its jagged edges, no matter how badly she wished to return into a graceful princess, and to the magical white bird that she could both save the men before her by sacrificing herself, Fakir's heart refused to transform into anything but herself. For him, she was always Duck. My heart's desire. She heard Fakir's voice addressing her, coming from her own heart, and looked down surprised to find the broken pendant glowing a beautiful warm red. Her pulse raced at the thought that she was that to him. Why? She wondered, surprised at her own emotions. The light of Fakir's broken heart enveloped her, and she felt all the warmth of him being cradled in his arms as she had when she was a duck. But his voice continued, full of sadness. I was to give you yours. I wanted you to make choices for your own sake, for once. Not for him, not for me, not for anyone else. Only you. I can't seem to give you anything but pain.
Fakir,
Duck whispered back at the finger pendant.
why don't you ever understand anything?
That was the only response he had time for, because the knight and prince were preparing to strike again. Both with looks of such resolution that Fakir knew there was only one way for the battle to end. She leaped in front of Fakir, not only for Mythos' sake, but not only for Fakir's, but her own. Because it would break him once he realized what he had done. That he had raised his sword against the person he sworn to protect, the person he sworn to give his life to protect, and that would break her too. She did not stop to remember that Fakir had sworn to protect her too. Mythos, who was further away from her, was able to drop back his blade sharply, but time was flowing too swiftly to stop the course of events already in motion, and Fakir's sword was already poised at her breast. A part of Duck was not caught up in this intensity and immediacy in the moment, but was surprised to feel the pendant move of its own accord. It shifted just a heartbeat to the left and got in the way, slowing the sword down just enough and not enough. The pendant shattered, but did not stop the sword. It was a beautiful red spray of crystalline heart fragments and blood. Time to seem to slow to a crawl for Fakir. Crawl hauntingly as he watched Duck fall.
You guys would hate me if I stopped here, wouldn't you?